the mayor forms his own housing group to propose a contract to the redevelopment authority to buy whose members he appoints, so he can become the developer of affordable, moderate income housing on the Triangle. Again, that seems to me to be something of a problem. His proposal would eventually be superseded, but that to me is a problem. Let's see how. Okay, so in spring of '64, the regents have now approved the Murray Mall project. The regents are moving ahead with Murray Mall, the 700 and 800 blocks of University Avenue, to take the land from the private landowners, develop the graduate housing, and lease the land back. We'll see how that develops. Bob Knuckles had been Ivan Nestigan's administrative assistant. He ran against Henry Reynolds in 1961. Ivan Nestigan was the mayor from 1956 to 61. He got a job as Undersecretary of Health, Education, and Welfare in the Kennedy administration, so resigned literally days before the filing deadline for mayor in 1961. That generated a race between his administrative assistant, Bob Knuckles, and Henry Reynolds. And Henry Reynolds won. And it would ordinarily be an incredibly magnanimous thing for Mayor Henry Reynolds to do, to then appoint Bob Knuckles to the redevelopment authority. I mean, think about that. He's appointing the guy who ran against him for mayor to this really important, prestigious committee. The problem is that Bob Knuckles, in this most recent election, had run against Dick Cott, who was the president, who beat him and was the president of the city council. So now what Henry Reynolds has done is appoint to the redevelopment authority the man who ran against the president of the city council. Politically, that is not a smart thing to do. It's an incredibly destructive thing to do, and the council does not confirm him. Mayor Reynolds appoints Bob Knuckles again, and he gets defeated again. Now this is almost unprecedented for a mayor to appoint such a high-profile appointment and have it be rejected now twice. He tries a third time, and again he's rejected. Finally, he's able to fill one vacancy, but he's not able to fill the other one. He had appointed Toby Reynolds. And Toby Reynolds was a fresh-faced young alderman from the West Side. He succeeded Ethel Brown. Ethel Brown stepped down after she got the Fair Housing Code passed. Toby Reynolds succeeded her. And Toby Reynolds supports urban renewal. Henry Reynolds appoints him, and he can't get him confirmed. This is unprecedented and very confusing why the city council would continue to oppose qualified people for confirmation. We'll find out exactly why that happened, but there's no problem with Earl Espeseth. God, I can't say that name. Earl Espeseth. Huh? Okay, well, I'm trying. Becoming the chairman of the Housing Authority. So again, as of the spring of 1964, we have as the chairman of our public housing agency someone who institutionally opposed fair housing. Again, that is something I don't think we would see in modern Madison. In the fall of '64, Neighborhood House is finally torn down. The most, as I've said, the most important secular building in the bush, probably in the entire city. And then, come the fall, it looks like everything's back on track. The federal government approves the General Neighborhood Renewal Plan and provides $127,000 for the planning, so everything's okay. Everything's fine. The redevelopment authority is under control, the money's coming in, everything is good. And then it turns out that Roger Rupp now owns land in the General Neighborhood Renewal Plan which is the subject of this urban renewal planning grant. This does not make people happy. So now all the people who've been suspicious about what the redevelopment authority is doing are now directly suspicious of Roger Rupp now. Wait a minute. You own income property on Randall Court in the middle of the area that we're studying to determine whether or not it's going to be an urban renewal agency, an urban renewal project, and you didn't tell us? He says, well, I didn't have to tell you until you signed the contract, and because there are no conflict of interest rules before that. And they say, that's really not good enough. This becomes a huge issue, naturally. Ed Conrad says, you're threatening the entire program of urban renewal. The council is up in arms. Oh, and so the redevelopment authority is going to censure Roger Rupp now. So it's like, okay, that's really as bad as it can get, right? Nothing else. I mean, we've got our redevelopment authority director in scandal. Nothing else is going to go wrong this week, right? Everything's okay until the director of the housing authority gets thrown in jail for driving after revocation.
They don't even throw you for jail for that anymore.
Well, law and order, what can I say? So in the space of 3 days, the redevelopment authority director has been subject to scandal, and now the housing authority director, he comes to one of the meetings, he's in jail, comes to the meeting, he doesn't even tell him he's coming from jail. So he doesn't tell the housing authority, oh, by the way, I got a 70-day jail term for driving after revocation after my 2 drunk driving convictions. So this is really not a good period for the urban renewal program. Rupp now offers to resign. The offer is accepted. This is when Saul Levin becomes the director. Saul Levin had been in the planning department, went to Milwaukee, comes back, and now is the acting director and will be an important person for several years to come. And the housing authority director also steps down. Mayor Reynolds had given a very strong indication he wanted him out, and they appoint Bjarne Ramnes. Bjarne Ramnes had been a state welfare director for a quarter century. His one housing experience was he developed chalet gardens, which then he defaulted on in the federal, and the FHA took it over. So we've got a housing director with essentially very little experience in housing other than a failed housing project. But at least Saul Levin is on the case.
So was that what the, Romness over on Olin Avenue is named after?
Yes. You're ahead of the game, but yes, that is why the public housing on Lakeshore, Olin, is named after Bjarne Ramnes, yes.
I have a family member that lived there.
Okay, well, we're going to get to that, but yeah. I'll jump ahead. Want to know who the chairman of the board of the company that built Ramnes Apartments was? Ramnes Apartments was built by Public Facilities Associates, which was Jim and David Carlin, some legendary developer Democrats. But the chairman of the board of Public Facilities Associates was a former resident of Green Bay, Wisconsin, Vince Lombardi.
No.
Yeah. What do I care about a thing like that? Yeah, Vince Lombardi was here for the dedication of the Bjarne Ramnes Apartments in 1965. Yeah, Vince Lombardi. So now we get to the next fight over university urban renewal, because Fred Harrington really needs that $9 million. He really needs that urban renewal study in the general neighborhood renewal plan. But now the Homeowners Association is gearing back up for another referendum. And they came so close the first time, the city cannot risk another referendum because this one they might lose. The local, there's a, one of the aldermen, Leo Cooper, gets the council to pass a 1-year delay on any urban renewal program. That will kill the study. That will kill the university's $9 million. If the city doesn't do this study, the university doesn't get its $9 million. Fred Harrington is aghast at what the city council is about to do. So what he suggests to Mayor Reynolds is veto the freeze, create a study committee, and see if we can somehow get through this. That's what they do. Reynolds vetoes the freeze. They create a special committee under Toby Reynolds. And what Toby Reynolds' committee does is they knock the borders from here to here, from here to here, and they make it a much smaller redevelopment plan or a much smaller study group, and that is approved, and the crisis is averted. In 1965, we finally get the first public housing opening, and if you can believe the stories of the time, the first tenants really liked it. I'll get to Dave Braxton in a moment.
What was
Because-
it called again?
I'm sorry? Oh, we'll get to the Gabe Braxton apartments in a moment. But in January 1965, so remember, the city started tearing houses down in January 1962. January 1965, we finally get the first 160 units of public housing. We've had a 3-year lag when people have been, where are we supposed to go? The Redevelopment Authority has been trying to get a program in South Madison. They finally appears to be getting underway. And what's really, beyond just the bricks and mortar of an urban renewal program, the other really important thing it does is it studies an area. And you get really important demographic data. And the study of South Madison produces really significant economic data about the level of poverty in South Madison. In Dane County, 12.8% of people have an annual income below $3,000. In South Madison, it's 27%. Dane County unemployment is 2.3%. In South Madison, it's 34%. These are frightening numbers. This is federal pocket of poverty level numbers. This is an important finding, an important marker on where that part of the community is starting from and how it's going to be rebuilt. I spoke last week about how, or maybe the first week, about how the city really was desperate to acquire the land west of Park Street for the medical center improvements. The medical center you see at 20 South Park Street is on the site of the old St. Joseph's Church and convent and school. Look at these economics. They sold the land for $244,000. Its current assessment is almost exactly 10 times that, and its current annual property tax bill is almost that. The city of Madison is getting $230,000 a year from that land. It's been getting something on that order for 40 years, 50 years. So when people say, well, look at the financial implications of urban renewal, this is one of those financial implications. It's hard to argue with that as that's pretty successful economics.
How different is that from across the street where the new development didn't have,
I'll look.
Are those properties worth 10 times more today than they were in 1965, or what's the comparable ratio?
That's an interesting question. I'll look. I can look that up. I don't know, but it's an interesting question. I'll look. Did you?
$2 million is
Oh.
today's money.
Oh yeah, those are current. Those are current dollars.
Yeah. Oh, the assessment is just so 244,000.
The 244,000 was what they paid in March 1965.
That's $2 million.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay. So that's interesting that it works out like that. We have the dedication of the Gabe Braxton Apartments. That's her longtime companion, Mary Lee Griggs there. All the tenants, all the first cohort of people living at Gay Braxton are people from the neighborhood. Mrs. Gervasi has an apartment unit where her store used to be. And, you know, Mrs. Salvatore Amato, I don't think that's Nino's Amato, but Mrs. Salvatore Amato loves her place. She used to have a space heater and a toilet in the basement, and now she's got, you know, modern apartment. They saved Mrs. Brashi's grapevine. Fran Ramika herself presided over the transplanting of it. So everyone loves their new apartment. Unfortunately, it's 3 years too late.
Is that grapevine still there?
You know, I don't know. I'd be surprised. I don't know. Well, what's the lifespan of grapevines?
There's a 100-year-old grapevine behind the cardinal.
Okay, well then maybe Mrs. Brashi's is still there.
Or it was before last winter.
Oh yeah. The new neighborhood house opens.
They
And-
can easily overtake it, the grapevine field.
Yeah, we can look. I'll put that on my to-do list. Find out if the grapevine is there. Neighborhood house. The new neighborhood house opens, and it really has a different focus than the original neighborhood house. The original neighborhood house, serving the polyglot community of the Bush, was doing things like teaching English and Americanization and citizenship and those sorts of things. The new neighborhood house is mainly addressing socioeconomic stress. The average income of people in this neighborhood is about $1,000 under the city average. The number of single parents is substantially higher than the city average. The number of households where both parents are working is substantially higher than the city average. So the new neighborhood house has a socioeconomic focus as opposed to, you know, a civic involvement or Americanization or certainly an English speaking, English tutorials. More economics from urban renewal. In the Birmingham area, you see the federal contribution, the city contribution, those were as of the early 1960s. And these numbers were as of 1964. Just a difference in property taxes and assessments. Those numbers are backwards. 56 and 64 are flipped, but you can see the impact of what that urban renewal did. So economically, things were successful. I'm going to try and get through Murray Mall now, because this really is important and has a good story. So this is a great headline from the Daily Cardinal: Murray Mall project progress through praying. What happens in December 1964 is the property owners start coming up with their own plan. The university project was University Park Corporation. The property owners, the businessmen, call it Lake Park, call their group Lake Park Corporation, because it goes from Lake Street to Park Street. And what they want to do is they want the city to create an urban renewal district. Here we see people actually asking for an urban renewal district to fend off the university. The university administration, Fred Harrington, Robin Fleming, support what the city and the redevelopment authority is doing. It's the regents who oppose it. So we've got the city and the redevelopment authority and the property owners and the university administration wanting a city urban renewal program. We've got the regents fighting all over these two blocks. And this goes on for months. It goes on from December of 65 through early 1965. The regents keep fighting. The city wants to do this urban renewal program. The regents fight. The regents remember how much the city threatened their $9 million over the general neighborhood renewal plan. The regents are in no mood to cooperate with the city. The regents really are fed up with the city and don't mind if the city loses out on Murray Mall. Then Fred Harrington has a brilliant idea, because the chancellor of the University of Wisconsin is Robin Fleming. And Robin Fleming is one of the great labor mediator arbitrators in America. Robin Fleming is about to become the president of the American Arbitration Association. And Robin Fleming comes up with a possible solution. Robin Fleming's solution is to satisfy the city by creating an urban renewal district, satisfy the university by giving the university the 700 and 800 blocks. That's between Lake and Park Street. Give the property owners the 600 block, which hadn't even been in the discussion before, and also give the university the 900 block. So now everybody's got a little something. That is the genesis of University Square. That is what existed on those 4 blocks up until about 15 years ago when they tore down University Square and built the Lucky and the Madison Mart and whatever else is there. And within days, the proposal that Robin Fleming has come up with is endorsed by the council, is endorsed by the regents, and all of a sudden, it's done. All because Robin Fleming saw how to make everybody happy. And that's what, as a former mediator arbitrator, I think it's thrilling that it took a university bureaucrat and a mediator at that to come up with a solution that solves the urban renewal problem and created the 6, 7, 8, and 900 blocks that we see today. Yes?
Before we get too far on the UW thing,
Yeah.
I just want to touch back on that redevelopment of like Birmingham and all of that. There was an article about a year ago or less about how developers are eyeing Bayview.
Yeah, that's absolutely happening.
What's the thing? Is it eyeing that, or is it moving past just eyeing that property?
The city has had and maybe Tom, you may know, Tom Conrad works for the CDA.
The owners of Birmingham are a nonprofit organization called, the owners of Bayview are a nonprofit organization called the Bayview Foundation, and they own that property, and they're managed by a volunteer board of directors, and they're in the midst of putting together the final plans to redevelop that property, but it's going to continue to be subsidized housing in perpetuity, and they're just lining up the financing. They've got the design work all done, and they've vetted it with all of their residents. So that project's ready to go, and private development won't be happening where Bayview is. What have you heard?
Well, I just had read an article that developers were eyeing that property because, substandard housing. And when I was in high school, a friend's mother lived there. So I was like, okay, those aren't bad units. They could be updated, but...
They're going to be replaced.
Yeah, well now, yeah.
But they're going to be replaced with similar housing. They're going to add about 30 units just for the seniors that live there, because a lot of the seniors that live there are occupying the units that they raise their children in.
Yeah.
So they're in 3-bedroom units.
Yeah.
So they'll have someplace to go, and new families that fit in those larger bedroom units can fit there. But there's no possibility of private developers coming into that space. There will be some private money that comes into it, but only to take advantage of